This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today is someone I'm excited to learn more about with you. She's an award-winning clinician, educator, and community advocate, committed to excellence in both in and out of the exam room. She specializes in dry eyes, specialty contact lenses, and comprehensive family eye care. And she's known for a personalized approach, tailoring treatments based on her patients' lives, work, and play. With a focus on patient-first care, she is passionate about helping individuals of all ages see more clearly and enjoying better ocular health. She's the owner and optometrist of Hillcrest Vision, which has 2 locations. Please welcome Dr. Juawana Hall. Juawana, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. I think you have a unique perspective on running your practices. And with that, what's been the most important thing that's helped you grow your empire?
You know, I think it's funny that you call it an empire. I've never considered it an empire before, but I guess maybe it sort of is. And maybe one day it'll feel more empire-like, right? I think for me, the biggest thing has been to be very, very clear and defined about what my mission and vision is, and then share that with my team and include them on every conversation and decision that we make. We operate very much as a cohesive team where I am kind of Knights of the Round Table style. I am one person at the table, and every voice is equal. And when we conclude our decision making and we've settled on something, then we come out of that room and forge ahead as a team.
I like it. Tell me a little about what that means. Like, that sounds interesting in theory, but can you tell me maybe a story associated with it, or give us an example of what that feels like, or what that might look like in practice?
Sure. So as an example, we decided we were going to put in an edger a couple of months ago, probably 4 or 5 months ago now. And as we were pondering that idea and just really trying to figure out, is this something that's going to be right for us? I did all of my research. I was prepared, but I also told the staff, I said, look, this is something I'm considering. I want you to think about it, research it, look into it, and we're going to talk about it as a team. And we sat down, my leadership team sat down, and we talked about pros and cons. We talked about implementation. We talked about ROI. And we all agreed that, yes, this is the right way to go. And they had some blind spots that I really wasn't considering that helped me to change the way that we implemented, change our plan. I tend to be a person who's like, hey, I have a great idea. Let's jump in. We're going to do it tomorrow. And they really pushed pause on it and said, let's make sure that we implement this smoothly so that we don't promise more than we can deliver. And so we held off. Originally, like, the first time we had this conversation was a year ago. And I've never waited that long to implement something. But it just didn't feel right. We just didn't have the plan. Lots of moving pieces. A year ago, we were also opening our 2nd location, adding our 3rd doctor. And they were like, this is a cool idea, but this timing is terrible. Let's revisit, farther down the line. And so we did that. And as a result of that decision, our implementation was incredibly smooth. And our ROI it's already paid for itself, which is absolutely incredible in 4 months.
What were some of the things that they caught that gave you pause the project?
Well, for one thing, so we were moving from 2 doctors in 1 location to 3 doctors in 2 locations. And in order to accomplish that, we were going to have to hire and train new optical staff. One of my key optical people, who would have been someone that I would have had run the instrument, was going to be moving to the new location. And so they were like, okay, well, like, logistically, who's going to do this? And I'm like, well, they say anybody can do it. And they're like, yeah, right. That's great. I'm sure that's what they say. And I'm sure anyone can do it. But we do need someone with some solid optical expertise. And the people that we have remaining in this office are going to be training new people. And so we can't train new people and start a new process at the same time. And they're like, we want to do it 100%. We don't want to do it 64%.
I like that. It's interesting. Because I know as an owner, it might have felt like, well, why can't we just do it? It's like, it's just an edge, guys. You can have jobs.
Yeah. And looking back on it now that we're 4 months in, the process is pretty straightforward. And if I had pushed forward and said, hey, let's do this anyway, I think they would have figured it out and it would have been fine. But there would have been a lot more concern and frustration. There would have been a lot less confidence in what they were doing. And they would not have been able to devote the attention to it that it deserves. And so now we have an entire plan that they developed for packages that we can offer same day, options that we can offer, things I hadn't even considered, that, our same day sales and on the spot edging and, next day service, all of those things are happening a lot more frequently than what I had even originally envisioned.
Wow. That's fantastic. And it sounds like, it almost sounds like that. I think it's an African proverb, Ubuntu. I think it's what it is. It's if you, I think that's that one. That's a different one. I'm going to butcher this one. I think Ubuntu means for many one or something to that effect. But there's another one that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah. It's really neat that you mentioned that, because I actually used that proverb in a talk that I gave back at IDOC in the spring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty cool. What was your talk? I'm just curious.
It was basically how to go from single location to multi-site, and kind of what we did, how the changes that we made, and what the implementation looked like.
Nice. Yeah, that's actually something we're going to get into next. I'm curious what you ran into when you went to multi-site that you didn't expect.
I think the biggest thing for me is that, we were very, very intentional about our culture. And we made sure that we had culture carriers that went into the new office. We were very focused on that and sort of replaced them in what I would call our main home location. And so those people went into the new office and they were amazing from day one. But then we had a whole bunch of new people in the home office that we had to kind of reorient and teach them culture. So we actually had a little bit of a culture situation, because we had taken some of those people that were such strong culture carriers out of the original equation. And that, our team rallied. We had a good base of people, but there was just a ton of training that had to happen. And we've long said that excellence is average for us. We don't stand by enough is good enough. We go above and beyond for our patients. And a lot of people are just, that's not what they signed up for. And so, we went through some turnover and found the right team. It's very important to me that we have the right seats on the right butt, in the right butts and the right seats on the butt. And for us, that took a little bit of time. But we had the foundation, we had the systems in process. So it wasn't difficult to kind of multiply that into the new location. What we found, though, is that even though the two offices are 25 minutes apart, the patient bases are very, very different. And although we were busy from day one, because we did move into a location that had really no significant providers in the area. There was kind of a part-time doctor at the Walmart, but that's all in this town. So it was kind of ripe for the picking in terms of opportunity. We had a full book of brand new patients. When everybody is a new patient all on the same day, 20 people a day, it's a whole lot of getting to know people. It's a whole lot of, setting that groundwork and over and over again, laying that expectation. So even when we start out seeing lost patients just to get our feet underneath us, it was exhausting, because you kind of like the established patients back, they already love you. And you're like, okay, I don't have to win them over this year. I can just carry on, pick up where we've left off.
Yeah.
And so starting from scratch off new patients it's a little more tiring. And so I think there was that was a struggle for us in the beginning. And then people don't know who we are, in our home location. Everybody knows us. We have a good reputation in town. Everyone was kind of wary initially, when we opened the new office. And so the good news is that in a small town, word spreads fast. And so if you're good, you'll grow fast. And I love small town optometry for that reason. It's really, really easy to be successful if you have the right priorities.
Mm.
It's a little harder in a larger town where you have a lot more competition. And so they're kind of two different beasts. They're two different animals. And we do have to manage them with the same core values, with the same things that make us us. And, we want our patients to have the same experience in one location as they have in the other. But each office does have its own flavor.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's and how far are the offices apart?
They're 25 minutes.
Okay, so 25 minutes in urban areas is pretty far.
Yeah.
And are you in an urban or non-urban area?
So my home office is in a small city, my kind of primary location, and then my satellite office is in a small town.
So it's a very different model almost. You're going from probably someone with a decent amount of competition to being probably one of the sole care providers for medical and vision care.
Absolutely, yeah.
Community.
Yeah.
So that is a lot more to do. I want to talk a little bit about, was it an existing practice that you bought, or was it one that you started cold?
I started cold.
Oh, interesting. So you brought people over to be cultural champions that you had to turn over because they didn't meet your cultural expectations.
Well, yeah, no. So I moved people from my main office, took them out, moved them to the small office. They were great. They've been amazing. But then I had to replace them in the home office. That's where the challenges came in. And, just helping, people would come in. Oh, I've worked in eye care 3 or 4 different times. And then they get in and they're like, wait, you guys do a lot. This is more than I was bargaining for.
Yeah. Yeah. We've noticed that too sometimes. Sometimes there's gems. Sometimes it's, especially if they've had a lot of only big box experience, it's a very different feel and environment. You're right about that level of care. It's just, when you, like, we'll go, I've done it several times with our offices when I was working more day to day. I would drive the jobs to the patients sometimes. And I'm sure you all did something similar, but that was a lot of folks like, what? You do what? So yeah, it can be a challenge. So how'd you solve that? Like, can you talk about some tools or tips that if someone's struggling with that now, how did you overcome that journey?
So for us, I think that we had a strong foundation of this is who we are. Before you go in, like, we're gonna have your first day, you're gonna have a very easy thing that you learn to do so that you have a good first day. How was your first day at work today? Oh, I learned this. So the first thing we do is we teach them something so that they can go home and say, I learned this today. Not, I filled out 10,000 pieces of paper, or I watched videos all day long. We want them to go home with a win on the first day. But the second thing that we do is we teach them, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe. And these things are posted all over our office in all of the non-patient facing areas. So in case you're not sure, if you forget, these are our rules. This is what we live by. These are our kind of code of standards that we hold everything up to. To question something, have a look at the list. Is it, if it's a no based on this list, it's a no. Don't even go. And I think starting with that why, the why we do what we do, the how comes a little bit more naturally. And so sometimes that's overwhelming for people. Sometimes, you get someone in and they're like, I just want to punch the clock and head out the door and, not worry about doing a whole lot more than just being present and saying hello. That's just not the way that we operate. And it was very easy to see when you start training, okay, this is how we answer the phone. This is the way we interact with our patients. Teaching someone that our patients are people first. And beyond, even that person that comes in a bad attitude, like they walk in the door and you just know that they're hot. You know what? You didn't make them mad. Something happened. You don't know. It could be that, their dog died this morning. It could be that they got a flat tire on the way in. You have no idea. You have no way of knowing. So we're going to treat everybody with dignity and respect. We're going to help de-escalate when we can, when there's a situation. And then we're going to shift the focus back to them and how we can take care of them and make this part better. Because we can't always fix what's wrong with them, but we can maybe make the next hour a solid experience. And so we have them have a buddy, and that's probably been the best thing that we've done to kind of, I feel like things are more taught than taught. And so we have them paired up with a buddy. This is your buddy, and you're going to shadow them. You're going to listen to the verbiage that they use. You're going to, they're going to teach you how to do things as you go, and we'll slowly switch to you doing it, and they become your shadow. But they have their buddy, that their point of connection, and any questions, anything that you're not sure about, this is your contact point. And that way they don't feel like they're on an island or just kind of left out there to sink or swim.
Gotcha. I like that. It's almost like an apprenticeship type program.
It is.
Sorry. But it also makes sure that that person that you like and knows they follow the culture, they're going to be shadowing them and tied to them, so they understand the expectations, subconsciously or overtly, right? So it's kind of a neat system.
Absolutely, yeah. And we tell people from the beginning, hey, you're going to learn a new language. Optometry is its own language. We speak almost entirely in acronyms and abbreviations. Everything is backwards and upside down. It is weird. And don't worry, because all of us learn the language too. And so it's okay if you don't know all the words on the first day. You'll get there. And I think just encouraging people in that, helping them to understand that, we don't expect you to understand the breadth of which you just walked into. But this is like a dual immersion program. And so you're just going to have to get in here and kind of pick it up as you go.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's funny. The first time I saw a plus sill, I was like, what is this? And I was like, wait, people do that? I was like, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, things like that you don't expect, right? It's like, there's all these little details.
Yeah.
And now, if I was looking outside in, I might think that's a lot of time and money to train someone. Especially, you're taking someone else out who could be much more productive if they weren't shadowing, that person. How does that, talk to me about that. Like if I were to tell you that, what would you tell me, and why would you justify? Yeah.
I would tell you that I can, what if I don't invest in them and they stay? What if I invest in them and they leave? And that's happened. I had an employee, she worked for me for 7 months, and then she got a job somewhere else. She was moving, and it was going to be an hour commute to my office. So she got a job somewhere else. And I invested in her, and she got a better job as a result of that investment. But I look at it and go, you know what? She got me through the maternity leave of another technician that, without her, I would have been scrambling. So I'm grateful for the 7 months that she gave me. And I'm grateful to move her, let her move on, and she's doing well. And she's grateful for the opportunity to have worked with us. And we still have a great relationship. Even after, she'll call me up and how you doing? How are things? I feel like you pay it forward. Sometimes I get somebody, I got someone who came from another fantastic private practice in town. She had, been there for a long time. She left, she worked some other jobs, and then I got her, and she's a gem. She's an absolute rock star. And I'm grateful for the training and opportunity that the last office did, because it made my job so much easier. And so I feel like that's one of those things where you don't know. You don't know if they're going to, you're going to invest and they're going to leave. But what if you don't invest and they stay? And then you're stuck with someone who's really has a lot of potential, but you haven't really tended that garden very well. And so you're not getting a lot of that fruit.
Yeah. And I don't know, you feel free to share whatever you want to share. I like to normalize it to, revenue or cost. Typically, it's higher now, but the rule of thumb used to be non-doctor payroll is around 24% of, revenue. It sounds like you've heard of that. Are you in that ballpark, less, higher? Because people kind of want to know, like, hey, it's going to cost a lot to do benefit.
Well, and it does. So we're at about 26% right now. Those are numbers that I track
That's not bad.
every month. Yeah, it's not bad. Inevitably, I feel like every time I hire someone new, that number will jump up to 28% for a few months, while we kind of get that person trained. But then our revenues increase to match the training. So, my concern is if I'm going to pay my people well, I'm going to make sure that, they're not going to leave me for 50 cents, or something like that. But if I need to bring someone on to improve the system, I have to make that investment ahead of time. So I have to be able to sweat 28, even 29% for a few months until we can normalize it. But then once they're fully trained and I can see an extra couple of patients a day, and we have an increased capture rate, increased annual supplies, all of those things normalize that pay rate. And we're very, very open with our staff about our numbers. So we use EOS traction, that whole system, and maybe not quite to the letter of the law. I implement most of the things, but I can't say that I'm 100% doing every single step of the process, but I love it. It's given us a fantastic framework for our team.
Yeah.
And then we have, I won't say it's an open book, but our staff knows exactly what our revenue is. They know, hey, we're at 25%, we're at 26%. I can't go over 26%. So if we want raises, if we want more money, if we want another staff member, then we got to work to get it down to 25, 24 so that I can afford to hire someone, which will push us back to 26 for a few months until they're trained. And we talk about that. We talk about, cost of goods. We talk about, okay, you want me to invest in this new frame line that you think is so cool. Great.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to need you to sell the living daylights out of some things so that I have it in the budget to buy this. Because as much as I have tried, I cannot seem to print money. So I want to invest in you. You've got to help me come up with the way to do that.
Gotcha. I like that a lot. It's also systematic, right? It's like, hey, this is easy. This is a math problem.
Absolutely.
This is how we do it.
Yeah.
I imagine. So it sounds like you do let in some of your folks into like at least some level of finances, right? So
Yeah.
kind of
I mean, they don't have all of the numbers for everything, but they do know, what, like I said, if we're looking at, oh, okay, it's time for raises. All right, well, then we're going to need to get these numbers to a point that I have the space in the budget to do that. Or, with the edger thing, they were like, okay, so how much can we improve and lower our cost of goods? Because my equation is cost of goods plus staff salaries is 50%. So I don't need to be at 25 if I'm at, 28, 22, like the math still works for me. And so we look at all the different ways that we can make that total number 50% and go from there.
Nice. I like that. That makes sense. Actually makes a lot of sense. So, as far as what do you foresee as something that you're excited about that's on the horizon for you with work and optometry in general? I'll let you start with either way, whichever one you want to go with.
So, well, I think with optometry in general, I'm super excited about scope expansion. And I mean, just watching that happen across the US, I think that's really going to change the next 5-10 years of optometry. I think we're going to see kind of, obviously it's going to go state by state. So there's that. But I think that it's going to be really exciting, particularly in small towns, to be able to offer a level of care to people that are not going to have access otherwise. So that to me is exciting. A lot of people get really nervous and worried about telemedicine taking away all of our patients and all of those things. If anything, I have found, so we have a telemedicine office a half a mile from our home office. And I've had a massive increase in foreign bodies and emergency things, diabetics who went in and tried to get an exam and they can't, all of those things. And so to me, I'm like, thanks, because they're actively referring to our office. So
Right.
in there, handed them a stack of cards. And I was like, hey, if you've got somebody that you can't see, we're happy to see them. I'm not going to say anything bad about your practice. Like, I'm not that way. So to me, that's been a really symbiotic relationship. And so that's exciting to me. I'm excited about advances in scleral lenses and being able, so that's kind of my baby. Scleral lenses is the thing that I do that gives me such incredible passion in the exam room. If someone asked me, what if you could never see patients again? Would you be okay? I'm an entrepreneur first and an optometrist second, so I think I'd be fine. But the people that I'd miss the most would be my scleral lens patients, because I feel like we've had just such an opportunity to change their lives. So seeing the advances in that technology, seeing that become widespread, more offices offering that, being able to provide that level of care to people, it's fun. And you build a patient for life, you know? And I think that piece of it is really exciting. There's some scary things on the horizon. But I think that's really going to be, it's going to carry me to retirement anyway.
Fair enough. So tell me about some of the scary things. What are some of the scary things you see?
Well, I think that I don't love the way that healthcare helps me decide whether or not I'm going to treat a patient with a particular medication. That I have to go, well, we'll see which one's covered, and it doesn't matter really what my opinion is. It's which one your insurance will pay for. I don't like that. I feel like we've taken the driver's seat away from the doctor, and I feel like that compromises care. And so I'm a little nervous to see what the next few years bring in terms of healthcare reform. It could go one of 15 different ways, and I think 14 of them are probably not great. But
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. I do think that patients are more aware of it. So in previous years, it's been, we're telling them that their health insurance is terrible. They don't believe us. Now I feel like there's a lot more understanding of that. Patients are seeing that. And so they come in with kind of the expectation of, well, I'm not really surprised that they don't cover the refraction, or I'm not really surprised that they don't cover IPL. And I think that's actually made it a little bit easier. It's not great for the patients, but it has made it easier for us to manage.
Yeah, it is. I think every market changes. So you're right. It's just a matter of adapting to new market conditions. So,
Yeah.
uh, I like how you framed it as just excited about the scope expansion and opening up new opportunities for doctors. So curious, right now, there are challenges with reimbursements. You kind of alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are having staffing challenges too. I'll start off with the reimbursement challenge. How are you dealing with that? I think you kind of alluded to some of the solutions, but I'll kind of hear your thought process on how you're still able to maintain. Costs are increasing, revenues are staying flat or going down in some cases.
Right.
How are you dealing with that?
It's tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's a big challenge, but for us, we're offering the very best solutions for our patients. And that has been from day one. We do personalized eye care, and we're going to look at their lifestyle, look at their job functions, look at how they're utilizing their eyes in their lives, and offer them the very best solution. Very best solutions often are not covered by insurance. And we're very upfront about that. And we say, look, this is what we think, and this is why we think. And we've not had any trouble with getting people into those premium products, whether it be contact lenses or glasses, or whether it's a premium treatment option like IPL or low level light therapy. Those are things that we've implemented over the past. I guess we've had IPL now for 4 or 5 years, and that has been a game changer for us. Just adding that and low level light therapy to give people an option to take care of their eyes in a different kind of way. And so I think we have to embrace those things. I think we have to look at the ways that we can take care of people, that do what's best for the patient first, and then the money will follow.
I like that. And what about staffing costs? You kind of keep it pretty tight, pretty managed. How do you turnover, pay raises, things like that? Can you touch on that a little bit more?
Sure. I think that we pay competitively, and I believe that in much the same way that I am worth what I am paid, I think that my staff are worth what they are paid. And we try to encourage them and kind of give them additional carrots, ways that they can earn bonuses throughout the year that are tied to the metrics that we want to see move. And so, we have a goal each month. If we meet our goal, they all get a bonus. And then we have individual incentives where, I never liked the idea of spiffs, but this is sort of a spiff program with a twist. So I don't like spiffs from the concept of it creates kind of some low level tension and competition between the employees. And we've always been a lot more collaborative. And so for us, we created a spiff program where, every annual supply sales, $5, it goes into the pot. Every transitions, $5 goes into the pot. Premium pals, 10. Second pair of sales, another 5, all these different things. And we have metrics for every single area so that the front desk has metrics they can throw in the pot. The techs have metrics. Optical has metrics. And so at the end of the month, that pot gets kind of large and we divide it evenly amongst the team. And so they're all earning money for each other. They're all sweetening the pot for each other, which is a great way for them to collaborate and not to compete. But also they know, hey, if I do this, I'm moving the needle for myself. And that's been a great way to keep them engaged, to keep them excited about what they're doing. They're invigorated by those little goals, those little tangibles. To me, I like the big number at the end of the month, kind of a bottom line person. But they like all those little wins throughout the day. And so they post at the end of the day, and they're like, we had, 8 out of 10 contact lens annual supplies, guys. That was absolutely incredible. And they encourage each other with those sort of things, which has allowed for a really collaborative environment where everybody feels like they have a piece of ownership. And I've also given my team a lot of leniency. Each of them knows that they have $200 in their back pocket. They can spend that $200 any way that they need to solve a patient's problem or to meet a patient's need. And sometimes that has looked like, we're going to comp something that, we screwed up, we're going to solve it. So they're going to comp something. Sometimes it looks like they're going to, send flowers because their husband just died. Oh. Or, we're going to send a card around the office and everybody's going to sign it because they just lost their cat. Little things that people do to reach out to wow our patients. And that allows everybody in the office to have this owner mentality, I can fix your problem. I don't need approval. I can handle this myself. And I think that translates to our patients, and it translates to patient loyalty. But also, I've had staff look at me and say, look, I know it's your name on the bottom line. I feel like my name is on that door too.
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't buy that. Like there's no amount of money that can be said that's not worth. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, those are some really good meaty insights. So hopefully folks are taking notes when they listen to this or rewind. I'm curious, what makes you tick? And so I always like to ask, can you share a story that's really impactful to you that it was formative for you? You felt like it made you who you are today. It could have been when you were younger or more recent, but something that you felt as visceral and like, yeah, that was impactful for me.
Yeah. So my dad was an entrepreneur, and he was a construction worker. He owned his own business. And we were a very kind of lower middle class family, paycheck to paycheck, worked very hard. And then about 6 years into his business, my dad lost the entire thing in a fire. And of course, 6 years in, he still had huge loans and lots of debt. And it was a really, really tough time. But I watched him through that process, and he immediately, the next morning when he should have just been, laying in his bed crying because his life fell apart, he was out there looking for another job. He was talking to people on job sites. He was finding the next opportunity, and he never owned a business again, but he always worked and provided and served. And he said the same thing kind of that my employee said to me. He was like, I don't own this business, but I treat it like it's mine. And that has always been so impactful to me because he did have it. He had the business. He had the whole thing. And I know that it can be taken away at any moment. I know that I am not the linchpin that is Hillcrest Vision. I am a piece in this wheel. And at any moment, that can disappear. So I have to honor the opportunity that's been given to me. I have to steward this responsibility, steward the people that I have the privilege to provide a workplace for, and hold very, very firmly the weight of their families depend on this income that we are providing for them. and their livelihoods depend on it, because it otherwise can be gone in a moment. And I feel like that has really kind of guided me in this whole process. My dad looked at me when I was in high school and he said, I want you to get your education. I don't want you to have to depend on anyone. I want you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and make your success happen. And that's one of those moments where, like, I remember where standing, I remember where that conversation happened. And I feel like it has been foundational for me just to see the way that he rose from that failure, from the ashes, literal ashes, of that fire, and how he carried on and lived his life. And if my entire building went up in smoke tomorrow, I feel like I'd respond the same way.
Right. That's a really, I think it's a really impactful story. Because you're right. It's always like, hey, how do you get folks to get ownership? It seems like you've kind of translated that to other folks too. You can see.
It's been fun. It's not always easy. And sometimes I say that we've been successful because we've made every mistake you could possibly make. So we've just run out of mistakes to make. But we're still finding ways to make mistakes. We're far from perfect. But I think that's the kind of attitude that, if you walk in and you have that level of respect for your staff and you have the leniency, like I give them breadth to do what I need them to do. I don't manage them. I'm like, if you have a better way, if you have a plan that's different, like, let's talk about it. Let's implement it. Let's test the theory. We run experiments all the time. I'm like, all right, let's try this for a month. We'll report back in a month and we'll see how we do. Let's test the theory. I'm a scientist, so let's run an experiment. And every time we do that, we learn something. Whether it worked or it didn't, we learned something. And I think far too many people will listen to podcasts or go to lectures or whatever, and they'll sit there the entire time and think about why this won't work for them. And why, well, that would never work in my office. Like, I know they said that worked for them, but that's just, here's 8 reasons why my people would never do that. And my response to that is, do you know? Do you know for sure? Have you tried it? Because if you haven't tried it, then you're just hypothesizing the negativity. And so I think you got to test the theories, give it a shot. And then you can tell me it didn't work, but don't tell me it's not going to work if you don't ever at least shoot the ball.
Yeah. I think that's a really good insight. It's, what is it? I forgot who said, it's easy to fool people and you're the easiest person to fool.
Yeah.
Things. Yeah. I think it's Richard Feynman. I'm not sure though.
I have no idea, but it's a good quote.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you might appreciate that. It sounds like you scientific methods. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, take me back to a week after you graduated OD school. What advice would you give your younger self?
Don't be afraid to bet on yourself. I think.
Interesting. Say more.
Well, when I came out of optometry school, the first day of orientation, they had us draw this picture of what did you want your life to look like 3 years from now, 5 years from now. They gave us crayons and construction paper, and we drew this whole thing out. And of course, what did I know? I was a first-year optometry student, but I drew my little pictures. And then as I graduated, I drew the pictures again. And in every one of the pictures, I was an associate. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I was an associate. I never saw myself as an owner. And I didn't know that entrepreneur was in there until I started working for a couple of years. I worked in ophthalmology for 3 years before I opened my practice. And I looked at it and I had a great first work experience. It was a 3-location, 6 doctors. I was the only OD. They treated me very, very well. But I just had this, I have ideas and I think I can do this myself. And it's harder to move the ship when you're not driving it, right? Especially when it was that big. I feel like it was definitely harder to impact, when I'm the only OD and there's, 6 ophthalmologists and they're all concerned about surgery. And so optometry was like, okay, yeah, do your refractions and, carry on. And so I left, and I was just like at this crossroads. Do I become another associate for someone else, or do I just do this on my own? And I took the step and I bet on myself. And to give you context, it was January 2009 when I opened my practice. Looking, it's time to open a practice.
Almost as bad as the folks who started February of 2020.
Yes, that's very similar. I signed my loan papers in November, the day before Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy and the whole thing started. But I was already signed it in, and I was like, well, we're going. And so it was a rough start. It was a long road, but I bet on myself, and every single time I was like, there's too many people. I can't fail. This is not going to fail. That's not an option. I've got kids to feed. This is not a choice, And I think far too many people look at, particularly now, students are coming out $200,000-$300,000 in loans, and they're looking at that number and they're going, oh my gosh, like I couldn't possibly buy a practice. I couldn't possibly cold start a practice. There's just no way. I cold started that practice with $200,000 in loans, and I took out a $500,000 loan to start the practice. So I was $700,000 in the hole when I began. And you just do it because you're investing in yourself, right? That loan payment is an investment in your ability to provide for your family. It's an investment in your ability to do the career that you love. And it's no different than buying a mortgage, right? We all buy our mortgages and we pay that payment every month, but we get a nice big house we get to live in. And we don't fuss about our mortgage payment because we see it. And I think sometimes people, because they can't see the investment, they get scared about it. But I've seen a lot of practices in my 20 years. I've consulted with a lot of practices, talked people down from a lot of ledges, and it's really hard to fail at optometry. Like you can screw up a lot and still be successful in optometry. Sometimes it blows my mind. The practices that I'm like, wait, how are you still in business? And so I feel like this is a softball when it comes to being an entrepreneur. It's work. I'm not going to deny there's lots of work. You got to love it. You got to love it more than you love the money. But if you want it, you can do it. And I think that your head will just get in the way.
It's interesting because I tell people all the time, I was like, this is a great industry. So it's I've been in other competitive industries. My background is not in optometry medical side, but engineering and other businesses. It's definitely good business, and patients. It's nice because it's nothing. It's usually not unethical. It's you helping people out as a need, and it's just a great all around thing that you can do.
I mean, you're making people see. You're helping them to see better. You are changing their lives. And I think that the more that you can really hold on to that and instill that in your team, that's when it gets really, really sweet. I have one patient, she came into me, she's a keratoconus patient. She came for a scleral fit, and we put her lenses in. She burst into tears. I mean, just completely sobbing in the office, hugging me and just, so excited. Brings her children in to make sure they don't have keratoconus. Her sister and her mom are now patients. This lady's an advocate for my practice. And she had a bill, where insurance kicked something back. And so my billing person called her to let her know, hey, insurance kicked this back. I just want to let you know this is what this bill is for. And she found out that the lady had an episode of acute hydrops and had perforated her cornea. And she was getting ready to have corneal transplant surgery 2 days from this phone call.
Yikes.
And big yikes. And so she shares all of that with my billing person. And then my billing person comes to me and she says, would it be okay if I call her the day after her surgery and just see how she's doing and make sure she made it through surgery okay, and just see if there's anything we could do for her? Maybe we could send her like a DoorDash, something, just to kind of help her out, because I just feel bad. She's had a rough go of it. And I was like, absolutely, you can do that. You know, you can do that. And that's the kind of investment. That's the kind of attachment that you want to have. You want to have team members that are willing to make a phone call to a person completely outside. My billing person has no medical background, you know, but she cares about this person. She cares about how she is gonna do after a surgery, and that's the kind of culture that changes things for people. That's the kind of culture that builds an empire.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Well, on that note, we'll end on the high there. Juawana, where can people find you and connect with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest place. I try to stay off the other social medias as much as I can because it's kind of a black hole. But yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, of course, and then certainly more than happy to have anyone reach out anytime.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you, Dr. Hall, for being a guest on the show.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This was great fun.
Yeah, and thank you, audience, for listening. If you liked, laughed, or learned something, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast. Again, thank you, Dr. Hall. This has been another exciting episode of Optometrists Building Empires. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrists Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at Classic Vision Care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.